How hard is it to start over? Creating habits, they say, takes 21 days. Find out how you can get back in your groove on the Richard Neese Podcast. We believe in all the F words: faith, family, football, and fitness. Check us out on the Richard Neese Podcast every Saturday morning on WKUL. Well, Dominic, it's been a long time since we've been doing a podcast, radio show together. We had, 2 or 3 now that we've had running?
Yeah. Gosh, it's got to be at least 3rd or 4th overall.
I think so.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
It seemed like the Real Estate Rundown had maybe 100 episodes or something like that.
No, we had more than that. We had more than that. I mean, definitely, it was consistent. Like, oh my gosh, I just... week after week, 2-3 years
something
straight
like
that we just went every Wednesday. I think we took maybe 3 breaks. Right. It was only for 2 weeks, and that's because of vacations or even during the holidays and stuff. We're like, oh no, we just got to freaking do it.
Sure. I remember the setup that we had, all the bells and whistles that were connected. Now we just hook up a phone and go. Isn't it amazing? Even in 4 years, how much technology has changed?
Oh yeah. I mean, no longer will we start in the back of the Happy Homes Real Estate office.
That's right.
With a computer system that decides to not work on me at all for what we're trying to do, and then him feeling like that he's never going to use me again.
Almost got fired even though you weren't even getting paid.
Yeah, I know. I said I'll do something for free, and then he still wants to fire my.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, times have definitely changed. But what I'll tell you is that starting up again, getting back into the habit or a routine, whether that's in fitness, whether that's in business, whether it's in podcasts, it's never easy, but it's almost always worth it. I enjoy getting back in the groove. A lot of things have changed in my life over the past 4 years. I'll say I got a little bit heavy. I've been back in the gym a little bit more. I've actually started 75 hard again recently. I'm on my 3rd or 4th go around, but it's a tough program. But the rewards I've seen over the last 60 days have been pretty incredible. And, we want to kind of talk about that and talk about how to build that habit back up and get better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Last time we were doing this, I believe I weighed about 35 pounds heavier myself. Gained a good bit of it back, but from whenever I started.
Lost it and found it.
Yeah. I mean, basically, it kind of bounced out a little bit, but not in a good way.
I'm excited about getting back on here. I'm really excited about putting out a message to folks. What I found through business and through fitness, through the military, through law enforcement, all the things that I've done over the past really 20 years, it seems like 4 or 5 lifetimes. I want to share that with folks. What I see is a lot of guys. I was talking to my wife one time, shifting gears a little bit, and so I always like to wear kind of cool, different types of hats and stuff like that. And she would always give me a hard time. She'd say, "Nobody else wears those hats." I said, "Watch, I'll wear this hat, and then in the next 2 weeks, you'll see 5 or 10 dudes that wear that hat." Now I know there's some sort of psychological thing that you start seeing those. But I always said I was going to start a podcast called Wear That Hat because I know there's a bunch of dads out there, men out there that want to wear that hat, and their wives are saying, "Nah, don't do that." But I really believe that you start wearing that hat, and it brings out the confidence of everybody else to wear that hat too.
Absolutely.
Same thing with this other stuff. I mean, whether it's the experience that we have through business and through the military, through leadership, through fails, through wins. I think there are a lot of folks out there that are the silent majority, and we've seen that politics-wise over the last 4 years, kind of coming out of the silent majority.
Yeah, now we have the silent, pissed-off majority.
That's right. That's right. But you have the majority of folks out there that aren't going to say anything, but the small actions, the advice, the wisdom that you can give that they hear on a podcast, especially when it's somebody local, it's somebody that they know, somebody that they've grown up with. It gives more validity to the fact that I can do that. I can be more. I can accomplish my dreams. I can own that business. I can run that race, whatever that might be. And that's the kind of stuff that I love seeing is guys that say, "You motivated me to get in the gym or start walking," or you motivated me to start a business. And as you know, I like motivating and I like pushing people. Sometimes it's pushing them off the edge, but I like pushing folks.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can see that. So going back to the hat thing, what's your favorite hat?
So, I mean, I've gone back to just regular ball caps lately. Mm-hmm. I've actually got my Andy Priscilla hat today, if you guys check it out.
Yeah, because for a while you're wearing the little paperboy hat.
I was wearing the newsboy hats.
The newsboy, yeah.
Paperboy, close enough.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple Italian buddies from up in New York that like for me to wear those things. But, it's whatever I'm feeling. The cool part is that, like Joe Rogan talks about, this is your story. and you're the author and you get to write the chapters.
So no fedoras.
So no fedora right now, but I'm not saying tomorrow or next week I might have a fedora.
I mean, you might try to bring the fedora back with everybody. You know, I mean,
it sounds like a song, bringing fedora back.
Is it? Oh, probably. I'm sure there's a song about everything out there.
That's right. Well, I mean, I really just, whatever mood I feel like I'm in, I just go wear that, and I try and be that person, because at the end, I don't like being put in a box. Like, I don't want to be called a real estate agent. I don't want to be called a real estate broker, an investor.
So you wear multiple hats, metaphorically too.
Absolutely, wear that hat. And so maybe we should change the name of the podcast to that. Wear that hat, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, absolutely. So I want to be able to step into whatever role. And the cool thing is, we have seasons. Like right now, it's cold in Alabama. I mean, it's 26 degrees this morning, pretty cold. But there's seasons for a reason. And I was talking to somebody at the bank about that. If it was always summertime, just move to California if you want that, first off. But if it's always summertime, we wouldn't have the crops, we wouldn't have the hard freezes, things like that. I'm by no means an agricultural guy, but you probably would know more about that than me. But those seasons are important. It makes you appreciate the other things too. So seasons in life, seasons in the year, all those things are important to get the full aspect, in my opinion.
Absolutely. It makes you appreciate everything as they come, because you know it's not going to last forever in those seasons. So yeah, that's the biggest thing for me is like, when summer's here, I'm like, oh gosh, finally, getting out of that.
Absolutely.
Probably the best two seasons though, that's the most exciting when you get into it, of course, is fall and spring.
I would disagree, because I believe the best season is football season.
Well,
but anyway,
the
natural season.
Yeah, the fall kind of falls into that, no pun intended. But yeah, no, it's just like basically when you start smelling that the leaves start changing, you start seeing the leaves start changing, not smelling them, but you smell them too. But whenever you start seeing that happen, and then you start feeling it coming on board,
sure,
and you're just ready, you just feel it in your bones, and then it comes down to the end of the season, and your team is 8-4. You're like, what the heck was all that about?
Just wish it was 2019 again, right?
Is that what it was? Yeah, or 2020.
2020. That's been a few years. Well, one thing we do love, and the purpose of this podcast is to help you. We want to give back. We want to give you something that'll make you better. We want to build on that. It makes me better to be able to speak and teach. I love doing that. I love inspiring people. And so that's why we're here, is to help you in whatever capacity that is. If you've been sitting on the couch for a while and gained an extra 15, 20 pounds, and we motivate you to get up and do something, that's great. I've taken on 75 Hard, which is an awesome program. I've also been doing some Rucking, which is a good opportunity for folks that don't necessarily want to run, but want to gain some strength and also get some cardio in. I really enjoy the Rucking programs and things like that. We want to motivate you to do better. We want to help you in that way. And in turn, the world is a better place because of you're going to provide opportunities for us, for me, for our community. And that's what we want to build out day by day. Every episode, we want to get closer to that.
So with that being said, and you're talking about rucking and stuff, how do you get started on a rucking? Because obviously you did a lot of it recently, and I've always seen you posting about it. What made you decide to get into it, and what benefits have you seen from this rucking?
So what I'll say is I got into rucking again. I'm a military guy. I was in the Army Reserves for about 11 years, did a tour in Iraq. We did rucking then. It was not nearly as pleasant as I do it now. This is more of a social fitness. But what I'll say is the best way to start rucking is don't even worry about a ruck, just get out and walk. Now, walking is the beginning. The reason I started doing it is because my knees were hurting too much to run. And I was actually a collegiate runner for a year at a Division III school. But my knees were hurting. So I was like, how can I do something that's going to increase load capacity so I can lose more weight, gain strength, do something else? Because I don't necessarily want to be a runner's form. I want to have some meat on me as far as muscle goes. I'm not doing marathons. I'm not David Goggins or anything like that. But this is an opportunity for me to put some weight on my back to get more workload out of that time frame. And so I started with just walking, and then I ended up adding a backpack with some water. And then I've been doing some hiking with a friend of mine. It's been a year ago, so I finally put that bag to use, that hiking pack to use, by putting some weight in the back, some water, stuff like that. And then it just became kind of a social thing, because us as men, we don't like to say, oh, we're going on a walk in the park. I mean, that's literally the easiest thing you can do, right? The walk in the park. We want to think that we're doing something masculine and something that's going to make you feel.
Me and my wife is going walks in the park all the time.
That's right. We don't need to talk about all that. But with the rucking side, like if you have weight on your back, apparently that automatically makes you grow chest hair. I think that's what happens, because you put that on your back and you think, okay, I'm more rugged just because of that. Now, rucking itself, the Go Ruck company kind of pushed this all out probably about 10 years ago. Some special forces guys got together, started selling some backpacks and some shoes and things like some apparel. And they prescribed as rucking being a great exercise for fitness, but also for the social side. So you can ruck. When you're running, typically you're not talking that much. I'm not a great runner, so it's harder for me to talk when I run. But when I'm rucking, I can talk, have conversations. You can kind of unwind, recharge. And so that's why I got into it, starting off with a couple miles at the park. And then now we're doing 12-mile rucks and things like that. But you can start off as small as you want with rucks.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can barely breathe, let alone talk. So, I mean, that's going to take way too much energy.
Sure.
I'm one of those people where I'll have to stop and then I'll get distracted by a leaf up there and I'll be wondering something about that leaf. And then I'll turn around and forget I'm even rucking.
Well, that's the great part, though. It's not about a PR. It's not about a certain time frame, because when you're running and you stop, you're no longer running. When you're rucking and you stop, if you don't take your pack off, you still have the weight on your back. You're still building muscles. You're still building endurance, things like that. So
did you set goals for yourself as you start?
So I always kind of set the moving goalpost. I set goals to begin with. It was just to have 25 pounds on my back. And then eventually I got up to 45 pounds, and I'm sitting at about 50 right now on a regular basis. And then we set goals for time, which I like to have about a 15 to 16 minute pace, which is, it's moving on when you're walking. And then we do different terrains too. So it's not really about goal setting on that stuff. We set small goals, but it's really more about the social aspect and then getting out and doing it. Like, I can turn my brain off during a ruck if I want to. And I used to be able to do that with a run, but now it's easier because I'm not pushing myself. I'm not worried about rolling my ankle. I'm just out there rucking. I'm just getting a good exercise in.
What are tips for beginners? So if I want to get started next week and start rucking, what would be the biggest tip you'd have for me?
So if you're local, you can go on we actually just started a Facebook group, the Coleman Ridge Ruckers. Just going to have weekly meetings where we do 2 to 3 mile rucks, but there's all sorts of information out online. Go Ruck is a great resource. They'll actually give you training plans and things like that if you want to do it. But the key is just start slow. There's tons of stuff on YouTube too, and I'm happy to help anybody. I'm no expert in rucking, but I enjoy doing it. So just keep listening to us is one good way of learning about our expeditions. We did a 12-mile Army Ranger ruck last Friday, which was pretty brutal I'm 37 and pretty brutal for me. We got it in under the 3-hour mark, but my knees were feeling it. Wasn't something that I would recommend for just anybody to do. You want to build up to that, and I kind of got ahead of myself, but it was a challenge I set for myself.
Gotcha.
All right. So we're talking about college football a few minutes ago, and I'm an Alabama guy. I know that you're an LSU man, and that's okay. I mean, somebody's got to root for them too. I should say I'm a Nick Saban fan, and now Nick's gone, I'm starting to question old DeBoer. But we'll get to that later, I guess. One thing that
Kalen DeBose.
So we'll leave the name calling off of it, but I do know it's been challenging for the new coach at Alabama. It's definitely a different system overall, especially offensively.
Yeah.
He didn't have the pieces in place to do what he needs to do. And to compete at a high level in Alabama is national championship.
Right.
I mean, that's all you can do. Anything less, and you're potentially getting fired.
Right.
And then that's kind of where you're setting that. Even Nick Saban, in his great tenure, if he lost more than one game, somebody was talking about the end of the dynasty, the end of the era. And now that it's come, it'll be a new Alabama for sure. One thing I did want to talk about, this is kind of a current event that's been going on. Did you catch any of the rivalry games?
Oh, gosh. Loved it. Loved every bit of it.
Lots of upsets going on.
Yeah. No.
I thought Mississippi State was going to pull off an upset, too, on Ole Miss.
Yeah. I ain't going to lie, I was pulling for State in that one.
Sure.
You always want to see the underdogs. Whenever you don't have a dog in a fight, you always go for the underdog.
Yeah. You go for the Bulldogs, right?
Yeah.
If you have a dog in the fight.
Oh, now when it comes to Georgia, I was 100% pulling for Tech.
Yeah. Well,
they choked that away. Gosh, they choked. They
created some chaos for sure. That was pretty impressive. I mean, they knocked off Miami and then almost knocked off Georgia. So it's pretty impressive. Dominic, you've been working on, was it every stadium? Did you go to South Carolina this year?
Yeah, I did. Went to Willie B. or Williams-Brice Stadium. Saw LSU win a game that they probably shouldn't have won. But that was a fantastic atmosphere. For a stadium with about 60,000.
Yeah.
Fits about 60,000. I mean, they absolutely brought it. Before the end of the game, I was sitting at the 50-yard line, probably third row from the 50-yard line on that, which, by the way, is the worst tickets ever. You can't see a thing. Me and went with my brother and my son, and we ended up leaving early before the game ended because there's only one of two things that was about to happen. Either LSU was going to win and a fight was about to break out because there was an LSU fan in our section who was running their mouth so much that the tensions got so high.
Imagine that, an LSU fan like that.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pretty common occurrence. And the other thing was that they were going to lose, and then there was going to be a field rush.
Yeah.
Because they had students right behind us that were getting ready to go. So me with my undersized 12-year-old son and my brother knew that one way or the other, this was not going to be good.
Right.
So we ended up leaving the stadium with about 5 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter.
Seemed like South Carolina surprised a lot of folks this year when they almost beat Alabama. I mean, they were a solid team, and I could see that early on, even though South Carolina doesn't have a great record. But, I mean, they beat Clemson on Saturday, too. Yep. So pretty impressive to see what Beamer – I was always a Beamer fan at Virginia Tech. Yeah, so seeing Beamer ball is nice.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things where there was to fire Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly was to move on. Shane Beamer is my number one guy that I would love to see. I mean,
I got you.
He just makes you want to fight. Sure. He makes you want to go out there and – I just love watching.
What about Coach O? You've been missing Coach O?
I miss his energy. Yeah, I do miss his energy, but not as recruiting and not as structure. I definitely feel like with Kelly, we don't have that energy with him.
Sure.
I feel like it's more excuse making than anything.
That makes sense. Well, I did see some things that I wasn't particularly happy to see, and I think it has a lot to do with, in my opinion, the change when they first off started allowing the transfer portal, and then when they started allowing Neil Muddy to come into the game. And now you see what I think are a bunch of spoiled kids slamming flags out and trying to disrespect people instead of just winning the game. It's one thing, like fans are fans, and they're not getting paid, right? So the players are getting paid to perform, to entertain, to do these things, and they're out there doing more than winning. Like I think it's Coach Carter, the movie Coach Carter, the basketball coach, where he's talking about when did winning become not enough? Why is it not enough? Why are you out there slamming flags, disrespecting? Yes, you won a huge game, but I saw the same thing. I think it was Cal, where one of the Cal, maybe it was Cal State or something like that, stole a helmet, and the equipment guy tackled him to get the helmet back. Like, why are we trying to do this? If you win the game, walk off proud that you won the game. It hurts my heart to see these young men that my kids look up to as being heroes act like thugs. And I don't care what color you are, white, black, yellow. When you're doing that kind of stuff, you're acting like a thug.
Absolutely. I agree with that there's definitely a lot of extracurricular activity that goes on that they feel a little bit more entitled to do just because that money, they say money changes people or reveals who they are. So that's revealing who they are in a lot of ways with some of these, but they are traditions of some of the stuff that, like, for instance, Florida State, they have the tradition where they will stab at the
that's right.
In the stadium.
That's a fair statement.
That's no one.
That's their stadium.
Yeah, well, no one feels disrespected by that. Or USC, where they'll go into the mascot will go into the middle of the stadium and plant the sword on the logo in the center of the field. Again, that's traditional, and I don't think anyone feels disrespected.
Do they do that at
other places?
I didn't realize they did that at other places.
I believe they do it at other places. I've seen them do that before. And when you're dealing with college students and stuff, you're going to have unruliness. Like Texas, they took 2019. They took Joe Burrow's jersey and they shot a hole through it with a can. The hole through it with a cannon. Well, Joe Burrow went out there and torched him after that. But
in my opinion, the difference of what you just said is players
and
versus mascots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mascots on both. Right. That's part of the showmanship of college football.
Exactly.
I think, and I hate this because I actually liked watching Baker play, but I think that was a step across the line. I don't know if you remember, he did it at Ohio State when Oklahoma went in and beat Ohio State, and then he planted the flag out there.
Oh, yeah.
So that's been, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, Baker, that was his personality, but then you start looking at all these guys following suit. I don't think that's good for football. I don't think it's good for college football. I think there's a level of professionalism because you're a professional at this point.
Right.
You can say what you want, but these kids are getting paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to play ball. I think there needs to be more accountability across the board. It doesn't just need to be, oh, well, the school got fined $100,000.
Yeah, the players don't care about
The
that.
student should be like in the NFL, you get fined personally for the problems that you cause. I think it should move in that direction.
I think, and I do believe that it will eventually when it comes down to that, whenever they start doing rev share, which they're doing next year. But I think you're going to see a lot of that toned down a good bit more. I think it all started because of Michigan and Ohio State. And I think other players saw that, and it's monkey see, monkey do. They all went out there and they decided, hey, we just beat our rival. We're going to do it. So then NC State does it at UNC. Then Florida does it at Florida State. And a few other, I forget where else they did it at, but several people did that. And it was just something that started once. So I think it was more of a trend.
I can see that.
Then it is going to be a problem in the future. Because
that's across the board. Like every time that Alabama beats somebody, just let them take the flag out there and plant it, and then vice versa. And then it's okay. I claim this because I won.
Right.
But when there is kind of that middle ground, that's where people get hurt. And typically, it's not your star players that are doing that stuff.
No,
Baker Mayfield would be the exception. Typically, it's your third string defensive lineman that goes out there, quarterback. They're usually the ones that are mouthing off so much.
Guy that's about to enter the transfer portal.
He'll transfer. Right? He's probably not going to play anywhere ever after this year.
Yeah.
So those guys are usually the ones causing problems. But I understand the mentality. Like my kids are watching this, and in the Alabama game, there was some dust up too.
Yeah.
With that, my kids are watching this, and that like my kids look up to Jalen Milroe, and I try and explain these are sports figures, these are people. We all have strengths and weaknesses, character flaws. We're good at certain things, but I'm watching them, and they're getting busted in the head and cussing, and my kids understand. I mean, they can understand what you're saying when you're mouthing it, and then on the backside, it's like, okay. My kids are looking up to these guys. What punishment's being had? Just act right. I mean, all that extra stuff to me takes away from the game. I understand you want to have a competitive advantage. I played ball. I understand that trash talking is always going to be a part of the game, but at some point you have to turn it off and be a professional, in my opinion. So, anyways, that to me that's just we went too far. Let's show there's so many good stories in college football, and then that highlights our media cycle.
Well, that brings me to another thing that I just thought about and I want to talk about now is, are you a fan of College Game Day?
So I have not watched a full College Game Day in many years.
Okay. I've been a long time fan. I used to watch it every day. Yep. And I feel as much as I like the person personally, that his introduction into College Game Day has turned it into a level of where I can't watch with my kids anymore. And that's Pat McAfee.
Yep.
I mean, so many times where
I agree with that.
He goes through this out there. And again, I like him as a personality. He excites me. I could see him being good for college energy. But at the same time, I want my kids to watch the show with me and have them in our own. So it's like a tradition. We'll get up on Saturday morning and they'll turn on College Game Day. You know, we'll either go and I'll make breakfast or my wife will cook breakfast. Yeah. Sometimes I'll go out and we'll go and get donuts. We've got this great local little place. They have all these different flavored donuts like blueberry. Oh my gosh, it's Daylight Donuts. Local shout out to them. And I'll go there and I'll bring a bunch of donuts home for the kids.
Chia.
Yep. And, you know, and it's just a good experience that they have. And we'll just, you know, kids get excited about it. Even my girls, they'll love it. You know what I'm saying? And they love to see the different antics and stuff that they do. Lee Corso, just such an iconic legend up there, but you know, and it's on, it's usually in the background at some point, you know, but it's kind of like Christmas morning that's just having that music on, you know, that's just the environment it puts in the house, sets a tone. And then, you know, you have Pat McAfee. And again, if I'm watching it, it's probably gonna be by myself now, where he's wherever they're at, he's going to try to encourage the crowd to shout their inappropriate chants.
Yep, absolutely.
Every time they'll say a lot of words that don't need to be said on air. And it's one of those things where the game is changing so much in a lot of ways, and they're trying to attract this new crowd of kids in there by having basically Pat McAfee was a social media guy that got signed on with ESPN. And again, he's very popular, but I feel like that's lost a lot of its not credibility, but its dignity.
Sure.
It lost a lot of its dignity.
I wouldn't disagree there. I think that what you look at with situations like that, I think that guy brings a lot of these guys like you and I, maybe not us, but people like us, back into that college field.
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm at college again because there are no consequences for my actions, right?
Right.
And so I can say what I want. I can be free and open. And then you got the complete opposite with Nick Saban sitting right next to him, which Saban's loosened up a little bit.
Yeah, he's loosened up.
He's not a coach anymore.
So. Yeah, he's definitely.
But I agree with that. And I think they're going after that market of the college kids, but also making the guys like you and I that are mid-30s, late 30s feel like we're back in college. And I think it's a play that they're making, and they're saying there's more of them than there were of us out there. And so they're willing to take that risk. But I do agree that there is a lesser dignity to the professionalism that used to be.
Right. And again, if you're out there and a student has an inappropriate sign or they do an inappropriate chant, that's going to happen.
Sure.
You can't control people, but you can control your host.
It shouldn't be the norm.
Yeah. And again, I think that he does bring the energy. But again, it's just it's taking it down to an undignified level to where it's sad for me because I can't watch it with my family anymore.
I'll tell you what, the only way I believe in this as much as I believe in voting. So what people talk about, I hate that this president's in office, or I hate that this party's in office. If you're not putting your money where your mouth is, if you're not voting, you can't say anything. I mean, I think it's worth commenting. I mean, we're doing it right here, right on the radio and our YouTube channel and everywhere else, saying we don't want to see those antics anymore. We like the energy, but it's gone too far. And for me, I don't watch it partly because of that reason. But I've also kind of moved away from watching the game before the game. I try and increase my productivity. And unfortunately, sitting on the couch watching TV all from 9 o'clock until 4 o'clock in the afternoon has not done well for me as far as that goes. And I also say I would probably say that open houses and the real estate industry pulled me away from that too, because I was always working on Saturdays and Sundays,
absolutely,
showing houses, things like that. And now the game to me is more about money and less about passion in college football. And so I really don't. I barely watch the Alabama games anymore. I like watching competition, but to me, it's not the same. The passion's not there anymore. You don't have the Rudy stories anymore, or not as much. But I will say this: I'm going to give credit to college football because I thought for sure the whole season was going to be a wash now until the playoffs, and it's been one of the best seasons that I remember. I guess because Nick Saban's not been dominating. And so that's a big part of it. So the SEC opened up. When the SEC opens up, then everybody else does too, because you start knocking each other off. And then ACC has a chance, Pac-10, whatever they are now, I don't know.
Yeah. Big
10, everybody has a chance. So it's really cool to see, the Boise States and guys like that have a shot at winning a title. I was a person that said this is not a good idea. You're going to ruin the whole season. I'll admit that I was wrong about that one.
Absolutely. No, I definitely agree. And it's no, we're going to tie it up, but tie this segment up real quick, but I just think it's crazy that you've got so many the parity in the SEC is just insane right now.
Absolutely.
You got Alabama beating Georgia, and you got Oklahoma curb stomping Alabama.
Absolutely.
And then you got LSU getting curb stomped by Alabama,
right,
and then turning around and just manhandling Oklahoma, comfortably. Alabama loses a close one to Vanderbilt. LSU handles Vanderbilt comfortably.
Well, the interesting part is, like you're talking about the parity. College basketball has seen this for a long time. Matchups matter.
Yeah.
It's no longer just about who has the best studs out there. And I'll say the transfer portal has something to do with that. Alabama locked up at LSU and Alabama, he locked up a lot of recruits for 4 years over there, not allowing them to play somewhere else. So that's another piece of it. So we like talking about football. We like talking about life.
And it's the end of the season. The season's over.
That's right. Over. That's right.
Yeah.
All those things are important to me. They're part of our lives. Life is not just about continual improvement. You got to have some enjoyment in it. It's not just about reading, writing, running, all those things. And there's more than that in our life. We want to be able to enjoy those good things, but we also have to know that that too much of anything can be bad for you. Too much entertainment, too much food, too much water. I was listening to a podcast and talking about the thing that's essential to life. Water can kill you if you drink too much of it.
Yeah.
So moderation is important, and understanding that. This podcast, you do not have to take into moderation. Please listen to us. We want to grow our show. We want to grow our following so we can help more people. I believe the message that we have is that you can do it. Anybody can do it. If I can, if Dominic can, anybody can. So let's continue to get better. Let's continue to learn from each other. We're going to come every week to you guys and give you more information about the tips and tricks that we're learning on how to hack the system, game the system, do better. 75 Hard is one of those, our 12-mile ruck. All these things that we're doing to better our lives. I'm actually started the carnivore diet yesterday. So there's lots of cool things coming out. Please make sure you listen in and please make sure you subscribe to our channel.